So here's a neat trick that I learned. And I saw this, originally I saw this with Gary Carter, and I've learnt it later on again when I was visiting anatomy trains. So torsion, and us being subject to torsion. So as we've learnt in our tuition Zoom, we're not linear, we're made of spirals. So the fascia, the connective tissue body, yes, it permeates all the way through the muscles, and it is the bones, of course. It changes the game because, yes, it's made of this lovely lattice work, but the lattice work isn't straight up and down the body. It's not straight across the horizontal plane either. It's very much this kind of spiral shape to it. So when we look at muscles in the body, they're not just attached from one bone end to the other. There's a subtle twist to them. So it changes the game with regard to movement, because all of a sudden we're not linear anymore, which would be happening if it was just this levers and pulleys idea and we've got this sort of contraction of the muscle. It's not just a straight up and down pulling movement. It's a soft, sporadic drawing back towards a certain point. So that means that the arms are naturally spiraling back into their home, which is the spine, and the legs are naturally spiraling back in towards their home, which is the spine. And it brings us back to Vander's quote that all movements, originate from and return to spine. And all of a sudden, rather than, as I say, this sort of linear movement, there's a grace, there's an ease, there's a flow, there's a beauty to the way that we move. All of a sudden, everything becomes very fluid and very easy and very spacious. As I say, there's a grace, there's a poise, there's a lift to it. But it also makes us subject to torsion, and this is a really interesting thing. So when things move in spirals, there has to be adequate release in the opposite direction to reset the muscle back as it was. Now we know, because we're asymmetrical and we have one side that is dominant, one side that is non-dominant, we've got a side that lends itself to a little bit more strength, a little bit more dexterity, but also a little bit more tension than the other side. And that can, left unchecked, leave us literally going in circles. And you might see that in your students that come into class, that they do have this very tight side, this very held side. And the best way that I can show that to you is the way that Gary Carter showed it to me. And that's with a set of torsion towels. And I use this usually when I'm lecturing on or talking about adductors. Because if you get somebody in a wide leg position or a wide leg arrangement, bring them into a wide leg forward bend with the hands above the knees, and then take the hips from side to side, then they'll feel that one side is tighter than the other. And you may get a client or a student that says to you, why is that? Why is one adductor, far tighter than the other? And of course, when we're looking at, and we will look at this at some point, when we're looking at pelvic floor issues, the adductors are part of the pelvic floor. So if something is screaming tight in here in the adductors, there has to be relaxation into the system somewhere. And that's where we get those, the pelvic floor starts to not function as it should, because it's relaxing to allow for tight adductors. But that's not for this video. So my lovely torsion towels here, my poor partner, I run off with the bath towels quite regularly, but just a couple of hand towels, and it's a really great way to show your students what's happening inside their bodies in a way that's, quite visual, quite tangible for them to get a grasp on. So with we'll call this our standard muscle, unaffected muscle, it's got a little bit of a twist in it, a little bit of a spiral, which is what we would call, normal. I don't like the word normal because nothing's ever normal because we're unique. So, as soon as we start to normalise things, that means somebody else isn't quite right, and that's not right. So here's my other adductor. And when I'm walking, I push off with this foot more than the left. So we'll call it the right. We'll call it right side dominance, which is, you know, the majority of the population. But there you are. So I push off with my right foot more, and my left foot is sort of bringing up the rear, if you like. So over time, that's going to cause a little bit more torsion in the adductor than on the left. And I keep walking, and I keep walking, and I keep walking. And it's a little bit out of shot here, so we'll put these together. So you can see that these two ends are the same. This is where the knees would be, and they're the same. But you can see what's happening in my torsion side. I keep pushing off with the right foot, walk up and down the stairs with the right foot, always put my best foot forward. It's there in our language. And now we see the result of what happens when we have torsion in one muscle, not so much in the other. And we've got a significant difference in length between one side and the other. So I hope that makes sense. It's happening in our body all the time. It doesn't make it bad or wrong. It gives us the reason for yoga. It gives us the reason for rebalancing protocols and systems of movement like Qigong, Tai Chi, yoga, Pilates, you know, all those modalities that are focused around restoring the balance to the two sides of the body. And that's all it is. And in the next video, we're going to have a look at that rebalancing protocol, because whilst this is very nice to know that muscles get torsion and it causes one to be shorter than the other, tighter than the other, and this is what we can feel as a physical reality in our body, what do we do with that? So watch the video called The Rebalancing Protocol, and we're going to go through what we do to, I was going to say straighten ourselves out, but we're not straight. To bring ourselves back into balance. So I hope that helps and makes things clear. And share this with your students, because as I say, it's a really good visual, tangible way to show people why what they feel in one side of their body is tighter than in the other side.